Hello, everybody. My name is KirkpattieCake. I'm an author and robot, and today we're going to talk about writing your plot and a little bit of a plot rant, I think, because I've run into a couple of books with a couple of problems, more than I would like, really. But before we get started, just a couple of things. It is now August. I was going to say September, but LBRY for September is currently open. Check it out in the description down below. LBRY is the event on this channel where you guys respond to a prompt. That's the word. You guys respond to a prompt that I give you by writing a story that fits it, however that means. And first video of the following month, I read your guys' brilliant writing. There's so much talent that follows this channel, that submits to this channel. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'm looking forward to what you do for September. Number 2, if you are a creative, check out the pitch fit down below, which is just if you have a book or a game or anything that you've worked on and you've got it out there for people to consume, pitch it to me through that form, and then I will pitch it September. I do it quarterly. It's only been done once, but I will do it quarterly. Number 3, Bleed More, Body More, my supernatural thriller / urban fantasy. You let me know what you think it is coming out in October. Check it out in the description down below if you want to check out what I'm doing. I don't have a version of it over on my shelf anymore because I gave that to a local bookstore to review to see if they'll carry it. So, it's coming. Also, working on hardcovers for that, so that's going to be fun. And then finally, if you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, subscribe at 1,000 subscribers. Okay, at 1,000, I will do a shelf tour. Now, as you can see, my shelf is sort of off to the side here. You don't really have a good vision of it. I'll give you a really quick peek so you can kind of glimpse at what you're in for. But at 1,000 subs, I will do an intimate shelf tour. So, get ready. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Here we go. That's all you get. That's all you get until 1,000 subs. Can we do it? Okay. So, now, for real though, on to the subject. Recently, I need to stop saying so. I start a lot of things with the phrase so, and then I start editing and it bothers the crap out of me. I say it so much, but that's how I start a new paragraph, and it's really annoying. So I've run into this issue more recently with a lot of contemporary books, especially where the description of the book doesn't really fit the actual contents of the book. And then that's the description on the backer, that's the description on Amazon or on Goodreads or anywhere the book is being sold, and it is such, like, writing the plot description, the book description, is so important, and it's also a different skill from writing a book. So, I don't... there it is again. If I had an editor, I'd ask for a so counter, but I am the editor, and I don't want to put in that much effort. So... it's very easy to get really critical of your own plot, but also to think, well, I don't need to work on that so much because the book is going to sell the book, not the plot. So your plot actually is the second thing really that sells your book, other than you've got the cover is the first introduction, that's the first impression. The second impression is the story, the plot as it's introduced, and then you got to sell us with the prose. Now, if your plot is super interesting, your description is super interesting, and then I get into your book and the described plot doesn't even start to 50% into the book, then I'm like, what am I doing here? This happened with The Fighting Storm. I can't remember if I mentioned it in that book series when I was reading that. All 3 books are on this channel with review. But I think all 3 cases of that, it described this action story happening, or with the second book, I don't know why I remember. Do I remember the 3rd book better? The 3rd book was the one where she fell into the acid water. Falling into the acid water didn't happen until more than 50% of the... not more than, like 40% of the way through the book. In the second book, Vic and Kelly go on vacation. but they don't actually leave their moon base or their space base to go on the vacation until about 45% of the way through. And then this big showdown with this rival mercenary group doesn't happen until about 75% of the way through, with absolutely no prefacing, no building tension in regards to that. Up until that point, it is just like family drama of a family reunion and a birthday party for Kelly. And then all of a sudden, the mercenary group is there for a scene and then they flee. So then the description of the book is completely different than what is inside of the book. And it's not just with the Fighting Storm series that I've found this to be a problem. It's with a lot more contemporary stories where, yes, the plot does jump to what is the exciting thing happening in the story, what is the most action-packed thing in the story. But when the book itself is not that action-packed and the items that you're introducing in the plot are halfway through the book or more, then you're kind of bait and switching people. So, I don't know about you. Let me know in the comments down below if you are a reader. But if the book content differs that much from what the backer is, or the action that is mentioned on the back of the book is that far into the book before we get into it, I'm usually much more critical of the book because I feel like I've been lied to by the author or the publisher about what the book is about. Now, I might just be super critical. I know that I actually am super critical as a robot, but still, you know, ooh, that's really good. But I think it's really important to recognize that your book cover is a promise to the reader, your backer text is a promise to the reader, and then the contents of your book is you fulfilling what you've promised to the reader. Now, you don't necessarily have to promise the reader that you're going to have a really, really good story, because you can't really promise an individual's entertainment factor or how somebody will interpret what you write, or if they will have the same sort of comedy as you have. I had to make the terrible decision of being a satirist, and so how people take my work, I don't even know. I've recently had the pleasure of posting something from my upcoming book, Boom Boom Boom, coming out May 1st. So keep your eye out for that. But I've recently had the experience of people looking at that quote that I'm posting, and it feels like taking it literally the exact opposite for what the character is actually saying. Pretty interesting. I am looking forward to seeing what responses to that book is like. Probably not going to be as universally enjoyed as Bleed More, Body More, but it'll be interesting nonetheless. And if you're looking for strong punk rock female characters, I mean, but the point is, writing a good plot, good backer for your book, you're making a promise to the reader, and you need to follow through on that promise, because that association the reader will bring to you as an author and bring to your brand as to whether to trust you again or not with, can you deliver the story that you're promising? So, I know my story is better than, you know, other people's stories. So I figured I would, kind of show what I did for the back covers for Dead End Drive and Bodymore. And then maybe we'll attempt to write one for Boom together, because I have not written a back cover for Boom yet. Except for, hello, boomers. That's all that I've said. Hello, boomers. Okay. So, first we're going to look at Dead End Drive. This was the first time that I ever wrote a backer. And it says, in this transgressive, satire-laced debut, a 14-year-old boy inherits his family home and the hatred of all those around him as they seek to seize the inheritance from his cold, dead hands. When Agatha Benedict plucked Kelly off the streets to replace her dead cat Poopsie, she neglected to inform him of some very important house traditions. The history of the Benedict estate prescribes that once the estate owner passes on, a will reading is to take place. However, the reading is more than passing on a loved one's final wishes. It's a figurative gunshot into the air, an alert to all in attendance that a playful game of anything goes murder has begun. The prize? The inheritance, of course. As if visiting, a storm comes in with the guests, trapping everyone on the property for the night, while Kelly plays catch-up on the house rules. Once friendly family members have already sharpened their knives. Try as he might, there is no survival if he won't play by the same rules as everyone else. A uniquely funny and dark murder party with big personalities. A coming-of-age story if growing up felt like being stabbed in the back by everyone you hold dear. as suspenseful as Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, as sardonic as The American Psycho, and as slapstick as Clue. Dead End Drive is a black comedy and satirical look into the world of nihilism and the rat race of life we all see, but pretend we don't, because let's be honest, is there anything more valuable than having every last need met for life? So one of the things that you really need to hit home when you're writing a backer text is the vibe of the book. With Dead End Drive, the narration is very stylized to have a sarcastic, sort of sardonic, I mean, it could be fairly caustic at times, but a kind of mean and sarcastic and over-the-top personality. And so that was one of the things that I had to grab with this description so people would sort of have an idea of how the narration would feel for the book. I would say Dead End Drive does have quite a stylized narrative voice at times, and I imagined something of a fairy tale reader doing the book. What was also very important for me was that people understood that this was satire, because some people were going in thinking that it was very, very serious, and were not prepared for it to be what it was. So what you'll see in this description here is this is basically a pitch line. The first paragraph is a pitch, where it's a single sentence that describes to you who the main character is and what is going on, the main crux of the thing, the main crux of the story. And then it gives a couple of adjectives or descriptors to give a better feeling of the genre of the story. Then the following paragraph does a very brief description introducing the main character, talking about what the story is going to be about. An old woman dies and the estate's up for grabs and everybody is going to kill each other. Then the final paragraph does a comparison for genres and for like books or like entertainment to give a vibe of who this is. Now, this is only one way to write a backer, and you don't have to write a backer like this. Now, when we get to what this text actually is, how this relates to the story. In chapter 1, Agatha's dead. Kelly discovers Agatha's dead. In chapter 4, Kelly is being told the rules and denying them by his butler, as all of the other members of his household are preparing for the games. So you have very a la And Then There Were None style, with all of the players that are going to be at the game collecting themselves and coming to the estate, as you would in the beginning of And Then There Were None. And then immediately after they're all gathered, the game starts. So Dead End Drive theoretically jumps right into the story that it's promising, where somebody dies and then they go into the murderers gathering together to prepare for a game of kill everybody else for the cash. Next, we're going to look at Bleed More, Body More. This is my upcoming novel. And this description is much different from how I did Dead End Drive. It's also very stylized very differently. This book is at first person present, where the other is third person past tense. And that book is satire, where this book is much more serious and much more dramatic, even if Joey is kind of sarcastic. she uses joke and deflection as a coping mechanism, so you do have that here. But this description reads, horror is what happens when evil overtakes the heart. Joey's a mechanic. One night, she receives a call from her best friend asking her to pick up his car from the infamous body dumping grounds in Baltimore, Lincoln Park. When she arrives, there's little more around than a stalled out car and a couple of ravens. So she leaves only with the car. Back at the body shop, it doesn't take long for the smell of rot to permeate the trunk. Inside, a corpse. The cops say her friend did it. His absence is his guilt. But Joey knows better. She will find her missing friend and she will prove his innocence. But something isn't right in Baltimore. It's not just the feeling that someone is always watching from the city's abandoned buildings. Her search for her friend reveals something much worse hiding under the city. A ghost town, reapers, regret. Suddenly, the city's rage and the stink rising out of the dirt makes much more sense. So as you can see, this backer text this description is quite different from Dead End Drive. Number one, we don't have a one-sentence descriptor of what the story is and who the main character is. Instead, we have horror is what happens when evil overtakes the heart. And that is a main theme that plays into the book, which is why I stuck it there. It is also a quote from the book because it's in graffiti, but some of the characters say that, and you get a discussion of how sort of that relates to the overall plot of the book. And the plot line of the book. And then you have paragraph 1, which introduces the inciting incident. That is at the beginning of chapter 1. Joey is at the park picking up the car. By the end of chapter 1, she's picked up the car, brought it back to the body shop, opened up the back of the trunk, and found the body. So the whole rest of the story is her looking for her best friend and all of these other things happening, which leads us into what paragraph 2 is, in that it is her search for her best friend through the city that she grew up in, and she finds a ghost and reaper, and what are the frick are the ravens, and how does the regret work? And once you read the story, you see how all of those elements play. But so paragraph one is the introduction of the inciting incident, and paragraph 2 is sort of how the story moves forward and what she finds as she goes. This is just another way to write a plot for your book. Again, what you want to do with your plot is create the expectations of the story that you're about to tell, or the story that the person is about to read, so that we can get a vibe for what the expectations are. It should sort of mimic the style of that's going to be in the book, or the voice that's going to be in the book. I would not say that this is quite as choppy as Joey's first person dialect, but my guys, I just have to say thank you for whoever put Bleed More, Body More on your 2021 anticipated releases. Thank you. I could cry if I wasn't a robot. Anyway, like I said, there are so many different ways on how to write the backer plot for these books, but the main thing you want to focus on is the story that you are promising to tell the reader. And in my opinion, one of the best ways to start getting a handle on how you're going to do this is to do what Dead End Drive did and introduce what is the basic plot line and who is the main character. Because writing a plot is a completely different writing the plot description is a completely different skill than writing the book itself. The book is the long form, the book is full of character, the book is full of voice and opportunities to show people what you're trying to do, but the plot has to summarize what the excitement is for that story. It is condensing your idea into the smallest amount and only the most important information that's necessary for the reader to have in order to know what your story is about and how to talk about your story. Now, the good thing is, as you learn how to do plotting, as you learn how to do plot description and how you do those short descriptions like with Dead End Drive, then you get better at having short descriptions for how to talk about your book. So when someone says, hey, what are you writing? You can just go, bleh, like you've got it all together. So that is the positive. The negative is that you actually do have to work on this skill, and it's not always easy, and it can be really annoying. It can be so freaking annoying. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm gonna do for Boom. Other than the backer's gonna say, hello, boomers. That's pretty much as far as I've got it. But, it all depends on what you want to do. For the sake of Bodymore being a 3-part series at this point, they're all likely going to start with some phrase sort of like that. I feel like I now have to figure out a different graffiti for each book that sort of describes what's going to be in it. Oh, no. Actually, that's a pretty fun idea. But I'll come back to that later. I'm struggling with that book right now. So now it's time for the part that I dreaded the most. We're going to try to come up. Well, I guess since it's just me sitting in a room, I'm going to try to come up with a brief plot description for Boom. Now, a couple of things to know. Number one, when you're working on your plot description, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. Your plot description can also go through basically beta readers or through your crit partners and say, hey, what do you think of this? Can I get some feedback? It's okay to do a couple of different versions. It's okay to shop it. It's okay to scrap it. In some cases, I even recommend asking your crit partners if they can do a paragraph description of what your book is about to them, and then you can sort of pluck things from that for what to use in your plot description if you're not really sure. So with Boom, a couple of things I have to keep in mind is, one, the main character is foreign. He is from Ukraine. His first language is Ukrainian, and it is a satire. So I have to keep the satirical voice in there, and also kind of a stiff voice. He is also a YouTuber, so that's going to want to be sort of, high energy YouTuber. So that's going to kind of want to be involved in the energy of the plot. So I think I'm going to start with a log line. Okay, let's see what happens here. I swear I wrote one of these already, but I could not find it. Yeah, I don't know if I can even do this right now. This is gonna be so bad. I don't even like this. So, using this as the line, Jan Bagan is Ukraine's biggest YouTubing explosives expert. His life changes when a couple of sponsors appear at his door, offering him his own TV show in the United States. So, one of the things that I don't actually like about this is that offering of the TV show in the United States actually happens at the end of the first act. So that's about 5 chapters into the book. The first time the sponsors show up, they just bring him explosives and say, keep on doing what you're doing. So that's not actually the first thing, and it might misset expectations. So I might actually rewrite that to bring up the sponsors appearing to support his show. And then, as things get hot in Ukraine, the sponsors mentioned they would like to the sponsors wanting to protect and then as things get hot in his little town of Nida, the sponsors come back to offer him that job, that studio in the United States for his own television show, and they fly him over. However, something strange is going on. Like, they won't let him leave his room, they won't let him be unattended, and all of the video conferences he goes to, everybody is a military cosplayer. What is going on? So it's going to be something like that, because also one of the things that I'm going to do with this description is, or that I kind of want to grab with this description, is the ignorance of the character involved, because Jan doesn't have any idea what's going on. He's technically actually been kidnapped by the United States government for his bombing abilities, but he doesn't know that. The reader kind of knows that something is going on, something is super sketch, because yeah, how can you look at Tom Cruise and Bob Dylan and be like, yeah, nothing strange is going on here? So I don't think that I'm actually going to be able to write something here, but you do see how I am not into this. This is something I'm gonna have to figure out so hard. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll try one more time, and when that doesn't work, I'll fill you in on this later when I actually have one written. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So this isn't happening. The closest I've got, yeah. Jan Begun is a Ukrainian YouTuber who just loves making things go boom, and for the first time in his life, he's met some of his fans who feel the same way. Between his job as a night stalker and setting off explosives along the Russian border, a couple of sponsors from America appear, offering their support. How? In the form of a thick box of military-grade materials. Grateful for the opportunity, Jan's quick to use them, but this also triggers Russian soldiers to visit Jan's small town and search for a terrorist bombing their border. As Russians visit Nida, the sponsors return to Jan, now offering him a studio in America to continue his show. The only catch? He has to come alone. Jan agrees, and faster than he could ever have imagined, he's setting foot in the land of the free, home of the hamburgers. Yet, something strange is going on. His agent, Bill Cosby, won't let him leave the hotel room. He's not allowed to see the city. Everyone he knows is wearing the same pair of black square sunglasses, and all guests at the local video conferences are dressed as military cosplayers. That's as far as I've gotten. And, I mean, that is a promise to what you're gonna see in the story fairly quickly, might I add, but that's not what I want. So this is kind of what it's like to write a plot, is you might run into you're gonna run into trial and error. It also, this is why it helps to have some of your beta readers or your crit partners tell you what they saw as the more important aspects, because sometimes those beta readers or crit partners can also give you more dynamic ways to talk about your story than you would come up yourself, and then you can just sort of pluck ideas from those on how to describe what your book is about. But what you really want to do is get to the meat and potatoes of what your book is going to be about without the spoilers. So, like, if we go back to the Bleed More, Body More example, it tells you exactly what you're going to get into when you open the book. Is Joey goes to pick up a car at a sketchy park and finds a body, and then chases after wherever her friend is because he's missing. Dead End Drive does the same thing, that it says this character, somebody dies, and everybody is vying for the money. For this book, it's going to be something similar, where Jan is a YouTuber who sets off bombs, and sponsors show up to give him more materials, and something sketchy is going on. So just think of that when you're doing your plotting. What is your book about? What do you want to tell the readers that your book is about without spoiling how it ends? Note that this doesn't tell you how it ends or what exactly is going on. It says kind of tickles you to come and find out. Bleed More, Body More doesn't tell you what's going on. It just hints at stuff with ghosts, reapers, regret, but you have to read the book to figure out how those things all work together. Dead End Drive doesn't tell you who is going to survive, and I would be interested in knowing who people thought might win when they started reading it, and were they surprised by the ending. I know that I've had some readers at this point in my reviews say the ending was a twist or a surprise, and others that say it weren't, so it's always going to be, you know, by mileage. But yeah, that's what you want to do, is make your promise for what is going to come in the book, and hopefully what you promise to the reader is not halfway through the book, because again, when I've been reading these plots and you get into the book and it says it's about this thing, but it's completely this other thing, it really just sours the reader, and it is more likely to give you bad reviews because you've set reader expectations and you broke readers' expectations. So that is really the biggest pitfall, is not the word that I want, but that is the biggest thing to be aware of. And if you make a promise and then you show that you're a liar to the reader is usually not in a very good mood, and it can make them more critical of what you're doing. That's just... So those are my thoughts. That is my experience, and yeah, that's not where I want that plot description to be. Let me know what your thoughts are on the subject down in the comments below. Have you written plot descriptions before? Have you been tricked by plot description before? How did it make you feel as a reader? Let me know all of your thoughts on the subject and more down below. Remember to like this video if you enjoyed. I do here, and leave me any suggestions of items that you would like me to cover on this channel. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a good Monday, and don't die.
The only people who should come are those who want to meet their monsters.
If this is what Agatha wants, I don't know how we can even dispute it.
I change lives, baby.
And I end them. Sweetheart, no bargains hold. Only fools know restraint.
Only losers lose!
I've been under the knife so many times, I'm practically immune to it.
If your scissors are dull, may I recommend sharpening them with leather?
I think I hit you.
Mima says I must have a guardian angel.
To enter the ring but abstain from playing is suicidal. Your virtue makes you nothing but a liability.
You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die.